Here's your fitness myth about muscle building that's been fooling people for years. Walk into any gym and you'll hear someone bragging about how sore they are from yesterday's workout, as if it's some kind of badge of honor. But what if I told you that chasing soreness might actually be sabotaging your gains? Today we're diving deep into one of the most persistent myths in fitness: whether muscle soreness really indicates muscle growth. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what's happening in your muscles when they're sore, why some of the strongest people barely get sore anymore, and most importantly, how to optimize your training for actual results instead of just pain. Let's start with the elephant in the room. That burning, aching sensation you feel 1 or 2 days after an intense workout has a scientific name: delayed onset muscle soreness, commonly known as DOM. Most lifters treat this like a report card for their workout quality. No soreness equals bad workout, extreme soreness equals amazing workout. But here's where things get interesting and where most people get it completely wrong. When you lift weights, especially when you're new to an exercise or pushing your muscles in unfamiliar ways, you create microscopic tears in your muscle fibers. Think of it like tiny scratches on the surface of your muscles. Your body's inflammatory response to repair these micro tears is what causes that familiar soreness. Now here's where the confusion begins. Since muscle damage is indeed one of the 3 primary mechanisms that drive muscle growth, alongside mechanical tension and metabolic stress, many people assume that more damage equals more growth. It seems logical, right? But here's what research actually shows us, and this might surprise you. The relationship between soreness and muscle growth is much weaker than most people think. Studies have consistently demonstrated that you can build significant muscle mass with minimal soreness, and conversely, you can experience extreme soreness with little to no muscle growth to show for it. Consider this fascinating example from exercise science. Your shoulder muscles, particularly your deltoids, rarely get as sore as your legs or biceps even after intense training sessions. Yet shoulders can grow just as effectively as any other muscle group. If soreness was truly the indicator of growth potential, shoulders would be impossible to develop. But we know that's not the case. Here's another eye-opening example. Long-distance runners often experience significant muscle soreness, especially in their legs after particularly challenging runs. Yet despite this soreness, running isn't associated with meaningful muscle growth. In fact, excessive endurance training can actually interfere with muscle building goals. This clearly demonstrates that soreness alone doesn't predict hypertrophy. The plot thickens when we look at what happens to experienced lifters. As you become more trained and your muscles adapt to regular resistance exercise, you'll notice something interesting. You get sore less frequently, even when you're training hard and making progress. This adaptation doesn't mean your workouts are becoming less effective. Instead, your muscles are becoming more resilient and efficient at handling the stress you're placing on them. But here's where excessive soreness can actually work against you, and this is crucial information that many fitness enthusiasts overlook. When you're extremely sore, several problematic things happen to your muscles. First, your muscle activation patterns get disrupted. Research shows that training a muscle while it's still significantly sore can reduce your ability to properly activate that muscle by up to 50%. Imagine trying to perform your best bench press when your chest muscles can only fire at half capacity. Second, your force production capability plummets. Sore muscles simply cannot generate the same amount of power as recovered muscles. This means your performance in subsequent workouts suffers dramatically. Third, and perhaps most importantly, excessive soreness can interfere with your body's recovery processes. Your muscles need adequate recovery to adapt and grow stronger. When you're constantly in a state of damage and inflammation, you're essentially interrupting this critical adaptation phase. Let's paint a practical picture of how this plays out. Imagine you're following an upper-lower training split, hitting your upper body twice per week. If your Monday upper body session leaves you so sore that you're still experiencing a significant discomfort during your Thursday upper body workout, you're likely compromising your performance and potentially your long-term progress. The soreness from your previous session is literally interfering with your ability to train effectively. However, muscle soreness isn't completely useless, and here's where it can actually provide valuable feedback. Soreness can serve as an excellent indicator of muscle activation patterns during your workouts. Pay close attention to where you feel sore after training sessions, because this can reveal whether you're actually targeting the muscles you intended to work. For example, let's say you perform a chest-focused workout on Monday. If you wake up Tuesday morning feeling the majority of your soreness in your front deltoids and upper traps rather than your chest muscles, this tells you something important about your exercise execution. It suggests that your form might need adjustment, or that you need to work on establishing a stronger mind-muscle connection with your chest during pressing movements. This type of feedback can be incredibly valuable for refining your technique and ensuring you're actually working the muscles you're trying to develop. It's like having a built-in assessment tool that helps you understand whether your intended muscle groups are receiving adequate stimulation. So what's the optimal approach to soreness and muscle building? The sweet spot lies somewhere in the middle ground. You want enough muscle stimulation to trigger the growth process without creating so much damage that it interferes with your recovery and subsequent training sessions. This optimal zone will vary significantly from person to person based on factors like training experience, genetics, recovery capacity, and lifestyle factors. If you find yourself getting excessively sore after workouts, here are some practical strategies to dial it back. Start by reducing your training volume slightly. Instead of performing 4 sets of an exercise, try 3 sets and see how your body responds. You can also reduce the intensity temporarily, using slightly lighter weights while you build up your capacity gradually. Think of it as allowing your body to adapt progressively rather than shocking it into submission. Another effective approach is to ease into new exercises or training programs gradually. When you're introducing a new movement pattern or significantly changing your routine, start conservatively and build up over several weeks. Your muscles need time to adapt to new stimuli, and rushing this process often leads to excessive soreness without additional benefits. On the flip side, if you're rarely experiencing any soreness and you're concerned about whether you're training hard enough, don't panic. The absence of soreness doesn't indicate that your workouts are ineffective. Focus instead on progressive overload, which is the gradual increase in training stress over time through added weight, repetitions, or training volume. This progression is the true driver of muscle growth, regardless of whether it produces soreness. That said, if you want to potentially increase the muscle building stimulus in your training, there are some evidence-based strategies you can consider. Exercise variation can be particularly effective. When you change exercises or movement patterns, you expose your muscles to novel stimuli, which can promote additional muscle damage and potentially growth. However, don't change exercises constantly, as this can interfere with your ability to track progress and master movement patterns. Eccentric training represents another powerful tool for enhancing muscle development. The eccentric portion of a lift is the lowering or lengthening phase of the movement, for example, the lowering portion of a bicep curl or the descent during a squat. Research consistently shows that eccentric contractions produce more muscle damage than concentric contractions, potentially leading to greater growth stimulus. You can incorporate eccentric emphasis by slowing down the lowering portion of your lifts, taking 3 to 5 seconds to lower the weight instead of letting it drop quickly. Alternatively, you can perform dedicated eccentric sets using heavier weights than you would normally use, focusing solely on the controlled lowering portion of the movement. Here's what you need to understand about the bigger picture. Muscle growth is driven by 3 primary mechanisms working together: mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage. Soreness primarily indicates that muscle damage has occurred, but muscle damage is just one piece of the puzzle. You can achieve significant muscle growth by emphasizing mechanical tension through progressive overload, even with minimal muscle damage and soreness. The most successful approach to muscle building involves finding the right balance between all 3 mechanisms while prioritizing consistency and recovery. This means training hard enough to provide adequate stimulus for growth, but not so hard that you're constantly battling excessive soreness and compromised performance. Your individual response to training will be unique. Some people naturally experience more soreness than others, and some recover more quickly. The key is learning to read your body's signals and adjusting your approach accordingly. Pay attention to your performance in the gym, your energy levels, your sleep quality, and yes, your soreness patterns. All of these factors together paint a picture of how well you're recovering and adapting to your training. Remember that muscle building is a long-term process that requires patience and consistency. Chasing soreness as a primary goal often leads to overtraining, burnout, and frustration. Instead, focus on progressive overload, proper form, adequate recovery, and consistent training. These fundamentals will drive muscle growth far more effectively than any amount of soreness ever could. The bottom line is this: muscle soreness can be a useful tool for understanding your training. but it should never be the primary goal or the main indicator of workout quality. Some soreness can indicate that you've provided a novel stimulus to your muscles, but excessive soreness can actually hinder your progress. The absence of soreness doesn't mean your workout was ineffective, especially if you're still making progress in terms of strength and performance. Focus on the factors that truly matter for muscle growth: consistent progressive overload, proper nutrition, adequate sleep, and smart program design. When you get these fundamentals right, muscle growth will follow, regardless of how sore you feel the next day.